Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 and Deku became the twin dragon heroes of the multiverse MHA. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence Point. Night air in Bellwood carried an unusual static charge, prickling against Ben Tennyson's skin as he patrolled the outskirts of town. 3 years had passed since his greatest battle against Maltruant, and at 18, he'd grown into his role as Earth's defender with a seasoned confidence that belied his age. The familiar weight of the Omnitrix against his wrist was comforting as always, but tonight it felt different, almost warm. Pulsing with an energy he couldn't quite place. "Anything on the scanners, Rook?" Ben asked into his communicator, eyes scanning the treeline where the disturbance readings had originated. "Nothing definitive," his plumber partner replied, voice crackling slightly. "But the energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. Proceed with caution, Ben." A grin spread across Ben's face. "When do I ever not?" The silence that answered him drew a chuckle from his throat. He continued his approach, the moonlight casting long shadows through the forest. The Omnitrix suddenly flared with green light, its surface shimmering with unusual patterns he'd never seen before. "What the?" Ben started, before the device projected a holographic display showing CTAL patterns of energy converging on his location. "Rook, are you seeing this? The Omnitrix is reacting to whatever's out here." "Ben, your signal is breaking up. The energy distortion is increasing exponentially. I recommend you." Static consumed the transmission as the air before Ben rippled like the surface of disturbed water. The forest grew silent. No insects, no wind, nothing but the sound of his own breathing and the soft beeping of the Omnitrix. "Never a dull moment," he muttered, activating the device with practiced ease. The familiar sensation of transformation washed over him as his DNA rewrote itself. XLR8. The transformation completed, but something felt off. XLR8's speed remained, but Ben felt a strange additional power coursing through his veined mesh body, almost like electricity but more primal. The helmet visor slid up, revealing confused eyes as he examined his clawed hands, now traced with faint, glowing green patterns that resembled scales. No time to analyze the difference. The distortion in the air expanded suddenly, tearing open like fabric to reveal a swirling vortex of blues and purples. From within emerged a creature unlike anything in Ben's arable experience, 8 feet tall with translucent skin that revealed shifting galaxies within its body, 6 limbs ending in crystalline claws, and 3 vertical eyes that leaked what looked like liquid darkness. "Definitely not from around here," XLR8 observed, dropping into a combat stance. The creature's head swiveled toward him, its eyes focusing with predatory intensity. "Dragon vessel detected," it intoned in a voice that seemed to bypass his ears and reverberate directly in his mind. "Primary target acquired. Initiating extraction protocol." XLR8 barely had time to process the GE declaration before the creature moved with impossible speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. Only his enhanced reflexes saved him as he darted sideways, feeling the rush of air as claws passed inches from his face. "Sorry, but I'm not into unauthorized extractions," he quipped, circling the creature at supersonic speed, creating a cyclone effect that lifted it off the ground. "How about we talk this through instead? Starting with who you are and what a dragon vessel is supposed to be." The creature made no response except to extend its arms, releasing a pulse of energy that disrupted XLR8's speed, sending him tumbling across the forest floor. As he regained his footing, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed with unusual intensity. "Okay, you want to play rough." XLR8 slapped the Omnitrix symbol, initiating a quick transformation. Humongosaur. The massive dinosaur-like alien form materialized, but again with the strange scale-like patterns glowing across his body. Before Ben could contemplate this anomaly, the creature launched itself at him, its body stretching and contorting in physically impossible ways. Humongosaur caught 2 of its limbs, muscles straining against surprising strength. "What are you after? What's a dragon vessel?" "The dragon force must be contained," the creature responded, its voice now sounding like multiple voices speaking in unsettling harmony. "The convergence cannot be allowed." "Not big on straight answers, are you?" Humongousaur growled, increasing his size to his full 20 feet, the scale patterns growing brighter as he did. With a roar, he flung the creature across the clearing into a massive oak. The tree splintered, but the entity seemed unharmed, rising immediately. The air shimmered again, more spatial rifts opening around them. Through each, Ben caught glimpses of unfamiliar worlds: a city with impossibly tall buildings, a desert landscape with 3 moons, an ocean where the water flowed upward. The creature paused, its head tilting as though listening to something Ben couldn't hear. Secondary target engaged in parallel coordinates. Recalibrating approach. Without warning, it leapt backward into the largest rift, which began to close immediately. Acting on instinct, Humongousaur charged forward, diving through the portal just before it sealed behind him. The sensation was unlike any form of teleportation or dimensional travel he'd experienced before, like being simultaneously stretched across infinite distances and compressed into a single point. For a terrifying moment, Ben felt his consciousness fragmenting, splitting across countless realities. Then, abruptly, he was falling through open air. Izuku Midoriya's patrol through Musutafu's industrial district had been uneventful until the warehouse windows exploded outward in a shower of glass and blue fire. Citizens scattered, screaming as the flames took unnatural shapes in the air, serpentine forms that moved with purpose rather than following the laws of physics. He didn't hesitate, green lightning crackling around his body as One for All surged through his muscles. At 18, he'd grown into his power, no longer breaking bones with each use. Though the responsibility of being All Might's successor still weighed heavily on his shoulders. "Everyone stay back," he called, his hero costumes reinforced, gloves already pulling his mask into place as he leapt toward the disturbance. Inside the warehouse, chaos reigned. Crates and machinery lay scattered and broken, and at the center stood a figure draped in rippling fabric that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their face was obscured by a mask depicting a stylized vortex, and in their hands writhed what appeared to be living strings of blue energy. "Halt," Midoriya commanded, landing in a crouch 20 feet from the figure. "Whatever you're doing stops now." The figure turned slowly, head tilting at an unnatural angle. "Fascinating. This universe's dragon vessel manifests differently." The voice was neither male nor female, carrying a resonance that made Midoriya's teeth ache. "Your energy signature is compatible." Midoriya tensed, One for All humming beneath his skin. 3 years of hero work had taught him to trust his instincts, and everything about this encounter felt wrong. This wasn't a typical villain. Something about them felt alien, disconnected from reality itself. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm placing you under arrest for destruction of property and public endangerment," he stated firmly. Eyes scanning for civilians who might need evacuation. The figure made a sound like glass breaking in reverse. "Arrest? No. I've come to collect what you carry, vessel. The dragon force with thee, and you must be extracted before the convergence completes." Without warning, the blue energy strings shot toward Midoriya, moving faster than even his enhanced reflexes could track. They wrapped around his arms and legs, burning cold against his skin. One for All flared defensively, the green lightning intensifying to a degree he'd never witnessed before. Where the blue energy touched the green lightning, strange reactions occurred, miniature explosions of light that tore holes in the air itself, revealing brief glimpses of other places: a forest at night, a crystalline city, a void filled with shifting colors. "What is this?" Midoriya gasped, struggling against the bindings. With a massive effort, he channeled One for All to its limits, the warehouse floor cracking beneath his feet as he broke free of the energy strings. "Whatever you want, whatever you're after, there are proper channels. This isn't the way." The masked figure seemed to flicker, temporarily becoming transparent before solidifying again. "Your connection to the dragon force grows stronger as we approach convergence." Fascinating but problematic. The Void Architects will not be pleased. Midoriya launched himself forward, closing the distance in a heartbeat, right fist drawn back for his signature move. Detroit Smash. The impact never came. His fist passed through the figure as though it were made of smoke, momentum carrying him past and into a stack of crates. As he recovered and turned, he noticed something impossible. Where his power had touched the figure, tears in reality remained, hovering in the air like shattered glass. Through one such tear, He glimpsed a green-eyed face looking back in equal surprise, a brown-haired young man about his age, surrounded by what appeared to be a forest at night. The masked figure observed the tears with what seemed like satisfaction. The resonance begins. Perfect. Before Midoriya could respond, the figure raised both hands, causing the reality tears to expand rapidly. The warehouse around them began to destabilize, objects flickering between existence and non-existence. "What are you doing?" Midoriya demanded, trying to approach but finding the ground beneath him increasingly insubstantial. Merely accelerating what was already inevitable, the figure replied calmly. "The dragon vessels call to each other across the multiverse. I am simply facilitating your meeting." The largest tear in reality expanded until it formed a tunnel of swirling energy. Through it, Midoriya could clearly see a forest clearing and the brown-haired young man he'd glimpsed earlier. Now in the form of some kind of dinosaur creature, battling another entity similar to the masked figure. The warehouse floor finally gave way beneath Midoriya's feet, and he found himself falling, not down, but sideways, through the tunnel of energy. The sensation defied description, like being turned inside out while remaining whole. His connection to One for All flared wildly, the green lightning surrounding him taking on new patterns that resembled scales or circuit boards. As consciousness began to fade, his last thought was a desperate hope that there would be no civilians caught in whatever was happening. Then darkness claimed him. Ben regained consciousness to the sensation of falling. Instinct took over as he transformed midair. "Jetray," he called out, the transformation completing just in time to halt his descent. Hovering on membranous wings, he surveyed his surroundings, an industrial area, partially destroyed, with the same strange reality distortions he'd witnessed in the forest. Below him lay an unconscious figure in a green and black costume, sprawled amid rubble. Before Ben could investigate, his attention was drawn to the two entities now facing each other, the creature from the forest and a new figure in a vortex mask. "Extraction failed," the creature stated. "The vessels have made contact. Convergence accelerating." "Precisely as expected," the masked figure replied. "Lord Kronos will be pleased. Return to base coordinates. I will monitor the awakening." The creature disappeared through another spatial rift while Ben descended rapidly toward the masked figure, firing neuroshock beams from his eyes. "I don't think so. You're not going anywhere until I get some answers." The beams passed harmlessly through the figure, who turned toward Ben with what felt like amusement despite the expressionless mask. "Vessel 1, your reputation precedes you, Ben Tennyson. The Omnitrix was an unexpected variable in our calculations, but not an unwelcome one." Ben faltered mid-flight. "You know who I am. What is this all about? What's happening to the Omnitrix?" He gestured to the scale-like patterns still glowing across his Jetray form. "The Dragon Force recognizes its vessel. The Omnitrix merely amplifies what was always within you." The figure gestured toward the unconscious hero. "As does his quirk. Together, you'll either save the multiverse or hasten its collapse. The Void Imperium is merely hedging its bets." Before Ben could respond, the ground rumbled violently. New rifts tore open around them, larger and more unstable than before. Through one particularly large opening, Ben glimpsed a massive creature with a serpentine body and too many limbs pushing its way through. The Paradox entities sense the Dragon Force awakening. The masked figure commented dispassionately. "They hunger for dimensional energy. I suggest you wake your counterpart before they arrive in force." With that, the figure stepped backward into a rift that sealed immediately behind them. "Wait," Ben called futilely, then darted down to the unconscious hero as the rumbling intensified. Transforming back to human form, He knelt beside the green costume figure and shook his shoulder. "Hey, wake up. We've got company coming, and I don't think they're the welcoming committee." The young man's eyes flew open, green like Ben's own, but with a different intensity. He immediately scrambled backward, taking a defensive stance as green lightning crackled around his body. "Who are you? Where am I?" he demanded, gaze darting between Ben and the multiplying rifts. "I'm Ben Tennyson," Ben replied, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "And I'm not entirely sure where we are anymore. Your city, I think, but why seems to be having a bit of a breakdown. Those masked figures called us dragon vessels, or something. Recognition flickered in the other hero's eyes. The masked figure said the same thing to me. Called it Dragon Force. I'm Izuku Midoriya, hero named Deku. A deafening roar interrupted their introduction as the serpentine creature finally pushed its way through the largest rift, 30 feet of writhing limbs and multiple mouths. Its body seemingly composed of the same spatial distortion material as the rifts themselves. Explanations later, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. Right now, we need to contain that thing before it destroys what's left of this place. Can you fight? Deku's expression hardened with determination. Fighting is what I do. The green lightning around him intensified, and Ben noticed it now formed patterns similar to the scales on his transformed states. Then let's see what two dragon vessels can do, Ben said with a grin, slamming down the Omnitrix dial. Humungosaur. The transformation completed, and once again the scale patterns appeared, more pronounced than before. Ben felt a strange resonance as he stood beside Deku, their energies, the Omnitrix and whatever power the other hero possessed, seemingly calling to each other. The creature lunged toward them, multiple mouths roaring in discordant harmony. Humungosaur braced himself, catching two of its limbs while Deku moved with astonishing speed, delivering a powerful kick to what appeared to be its center mass. The impact created a shockwave that temporarily stabilized the rifts around them. The creature recoiled, its form rippling with distortion. Its body is unstable, Deku observed, landing beside Humungosaur. The strikes affect not just its physical form but its connection to our reality. Then let's hit it harder, Humungosaur growled, increasing his size further. The scale patterns on his body pulsed in sync with the lightning surrounding Deku. Together, nothing clicked between them, an unspoken understanding, as though they'd fought side by side for years. Deku nodded, channeling more power as they coordinated their attack. Humungosaur grappled the sea Reacher from the front while Deku circled at high speed, striking key points that Ben somehow knew were vital, despite never having seen this type of entity before. With each coordinated attack, the rifts stabilized further, reality slowly reasserting itself. The creature thrashed desperately, but the synchronized assault proved too much. With a final combined strike, Humungosaur's massive fist and Deku's lightning-charged kick connecting simultaneously, the entity collapsed in on itself, imploding into a single point of light that winked out of existence. Silence fell over the ruined warehouse district. Ben transformed back to human form, staggering slightly from exertion. The scale patterns remained on his skin for a moment before fading, though the Omnitrix continued to pulse with unusual energy. That was, Deku began, the lightning around him similarly receding. Awesome, terrifying, completely unexplainable, Ben suggested with a wry smile. All of the above, Deku replied, a tentative smile breaking through his serious demeanor. How did we synchronize like that? I've trained with other heroes for years and never experienced that level of combat harmony. Ben shook his head. No idea, but those masked figures seemed to expect it. Something about dragon vessels and convergence. Before they could discuss further, a new rift opened, different from the others, edged with golden light rather than the chaotic energy of the previous tiers. From within stepped a woman unlike either had ever seen. She stood just under 6 feet tall with an athletic build, wearing form-fitting armor that resembled crimson scales over vital areas while leaving her arms and legs partially exposed for movement. Her skin held a faint golden undertone, and her eyes were amber with vertical pupils like a reptile's. Most striking was her hair, seemingly composed of actual flames that flickered and danced around her sharp-featured face without burning her. Both young men instinctively moved into defensive stances. But the woman raised her hands in a peace gesture. At ease, dragon vessels, she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality with an accent neither could place. My name is Keita Ryakawa, Dimension Knight of the Third Order. I've been tracking the Void Architect's activities across the multiverse. You know what's happening to us? Deku asked, the lightning around him subsiding but not disappearing entirely. Keita nodded gravely. More than that, I know what's at stake if we don't get you to safety immediately. She gestured to the smaller rifts still floating around them. These are just the beginning. The paradox entities you just defeated was a scout. Its brethren will have sensed its destruction and your awakening power. As if on cue, distant roars echoed through several of the rifts, each sounding more monstrous than the last. Not to be rude, Ben said, but how do we know we can trust you? The last few people we've met haven't exactly been friendly. A hint of respect flickered in Kata's eyes. Caution is wise. But right now, you have little choice. She held out her hand, revealing a medallion with a symbol resembling two dragons circling each other. This is the seal of the Dimensional Council. We are the guardians of multiverse stability, and you too, against all probability, appear to be the subjects of the Twin Dragon prophecy. Deku and Ben exchanged glances, an unspoken communication passing between them. The prophecy? Deku asked. No time, Kata replied as the roars grew louder. A massive limb thrust through one of the larger rifts, followed by something that resembled an eye the size of a car. That portal leads to Council headquarters. It's shielded against detection. We need to move now, or this entire dimension could be compromised. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, still pulsing with unusual patterns, then at Deku, seeing his own confusion and determination mirrored there. I'm used to weird stuff happening around me, but this is a new level. Still, if there are answers on the other side of that portal, and if we stay, more people could be hurt, Deku added, his hero instincts evident. My priority is protecting civilians. Kata's expression softened slightly. That protective instinct is exactly why the Dragon Force chose you both. The building around them shuddered as more massive limbs pushed through the rifts. Time was clearly running out. Ladies first, Ben gestured to the golden portal with a forced casual tone that belied his tension. Kata nodded and stepped backward through the portal. After a final look at the advancing creatures, Ben and Deku followed simultaneously, passing through the golden energy and feeling a much smoother transition than the chaotic rifts had provided. The world shifted around them, reality rearranging itself in impossible ways. For a brief moment, they glimpsed an infinite expanse of interconnected realities, countless worlds, some similar to their own, others wildly different. All connected by streams of golden energy that pulsed like arteries. Then solidity returned as they emerged onto a circular platform suspended in what appeared to be the center of a massive spherical chamber. The walls, if they could be called that, consisted of countless floating screens showing different dimensions in real time. Around the edges of the PLA form stood hooded figures of various shapes and sizes, some clearly not human. At the center waited Kata alongside a tall, distinguished-looking man with silver hair and eyes that shifted color constantly. He stepped forward as the portal closed behind them. Welcome, Ben Tennyson and Izuku Midoriya, he said, his voice resonating with authority. I am Magister Everfar, High Observer of the Dimensional Council. We've been expecting you for quite some time. You know who we are? Deku asked, still maintaining a cautious stance. Of course, the Magister replied with a slight smile. The Twin Dragon prophecy has been part of our records for millennia. Though I must admit, your specific identities were unclear until the Dragon Force began its awakening process. Ben crossed his arms. Okay, I think we've been patient enough. What exactly is going on? What's this Dragon Force? Why are we called vessels? And what's with these creepy void creatures trying to extract something from us? The Magister exchanged glances with Kata before answering. Those are all excellent questions that deserve thorough answers. But first, allow me to show you something that might help contextualize your situation. He gestured to the center of the platform, where a holographic display materialized, showing a complex web of interconnected light strands representing countless dimensions. Is as the multiverse as we understand it, infinite dimensions existing alongside each other, separated by the dimensional membrane. For eons, the Dimensional Council has monitored these boundaries, ensuring stability and preventing catastrophic convergences. The display zoomed in to show two particular strands of reality glowing brighter than the others. Your home dimensions, Kata explained. Earth 10 and Earth MHA, as we designate them. Recently, the Magister continued, we detected unusual energy fluctuations between your dimensions, resonance patterns that match ancient descriptions of the Dragon Force awakening. And this Dragon Force is? Ben prompted. The primordial energy that binds the multiverse together, Kata answered. It exists in all dimensions but manifests differently in each. In some, it appears as magic. In others, as cosmic energy. In your world, Ben Tennyson, it influenced the development of the Omnitrix in ways even its creator doesn't fully understand. And in your world, Izuku Midoriya, the Magister added, it manifests through what you call quirks, particularly your One for All, which serves as a conduit for Dragon Force energy. Deku's eyes widened. Are you saying One for All is connected to this cosmic force? All power sources are, to some degree, Keita explained. But certain individuals across the multiverse have deeper connections, potential dragon vessels who might, under specific circumstances, fully bond with the dragon force. According to the Twin Dragon prophecy, the Magister continued, when multiversal stability faces its greatest threat, two vessels from parallel dimensions will unite, awakening the full potential of the dragon force to either save all realities, or inadvertently hasten their destruction. The hologram shifted to show a massive dark cloud engulfing various reality strands. This is happening now. A being known as Lord Kronos and his Void Imperium have begun a process they call the Great Collapse, systematically destroying dimensions to harvest their energy. The creatures you encountered were his agents, Keita added. Void architects, tasked with either capturing potential dragon vessels or eliminating them, depending on Kronos' ever-shifting strategies. Ben ran a hand through his hair, processing the information. So basically, we're caught in the middle of a multiversal war, chosen by some cosmic force neither of us knew existed until today, and expected to save everything. When you put it that way, it does sound rather daunting, the Magister admitted. It's not so different from what we already do, Deku said thoughtfully. We protect people. The scale is larger, but the principle is the same. Ben looked at him with newfound respect. You know, you're right. I've saved the universe before. What's a few more dimensions? Despite his light-hearted tone, his expression remained serious. But we need to know exactly what we're up against and what this dragon force actually does. The Magister nodded approvingly. A wise approach. The dragon force manifestation seems to enhance your existing abilities while creating new ones. In your case, Ben Tennyson, it appears to be adding draconic aspects to your transformations while potentially unlocking new forms. And for you, Izuku Midoriya, Keita continued, it seems to be expanding One for All's capabilities beyond physical enhancement, possibly into elemental manipulation tied to your emotional state. However, the Magister cautioned, full awakening requires both training and synchronization between you. The connection you experienced during battle was just a glimpse of what's possible when two dragon vessels work in perfect harmony. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The screens showing various dimensions flickered, many displaying the same disturbing image, massive void creatures emerging through rifts, attacking populated areas across multiple realities. It's beginning, Keita said grimly. Kronos is launching coordinated attacks across the multiverse, targeting dimensional anchor points. He knows you're here, the Magister added. And he's creating chaos to force our hand. Ben and Deku stepped forward simultaneously, watching the screens with growing determination. Those are innocent people, Deku said, his voice hardening. In every one of those dimensions. Then I guess our answer is simple, Ben replied, the Omnitrix glowing with renewed intensity. Dragon Force or not, we're heroes. We protect people. That doesn't change just because the scale got bigger. Keita smiled, a flash of genuine admiration in her amber eyes. This is why the Dragon Force chose you both. The Magister nodded solemnly. Then let us proceed. Your reigning must begin immediately if you're to have any chance against Kronos and his forces. Training? Ben asked. To awaken and control the Dragon Force fully, Keita explained. I'll be your combat instructor. The connection between you must be strengthened if you're to access the full potential of your shared power. How long will that take? Deku asked, concern evident in his voice. Those people need help now. The Magister's expression grew grave. Ideally, months. But as you can see, he gestured to the chaos displayed on the screens, we don't have that luxury. We'll have to press your training and deploy you as soon as possible. Deploy us where? Ben asked. To the dimensions most at risk, Keita answered. Starting with those where we've identified potential allies, who may be instrumental in the coming conflict. You won't be facing this alone, the Magister assured them. Throughout the multiverse, there are others with connections to the Dragon Force, not vessels like yourselves. but individuals whose abilities resonate with its energy. Together, you may stand a chance against the Void Imperium. Deku straightened his shoulders, the lightning around him steadying into a controlled glow. Then we should start immediately. Every moment we delay means more people in danger. Ben nodded in agreement, the Omnitrix pulsing in sync with Deku's energy. I'm ready if you are, partner. For the first time since their meeting, they clasped hands in a warrior's grip. The moment their hands touched, energy surged between them, green lightning and Omnitrix power swirling together, creating momentary apparitions of dragon forms circling their bodies. The council members murmured in amazement while Keita and the Magister exchanged knowing glances. The twin dragons awaken, the Magister said softly. May they be our salvation, not our doom. As the energy subsided, Ben and Deku stood taller, eyes gleaming with newfound purpose and power. Around them, the screens continued to show dimensions in peril, countless lives hanging in the balance. The multiverse waited, holding its breath. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Fractured Reflections. Again, Keita commanded, her flame-like hair intensifying as she circled the training platform. Ben and Deku stood back to back, breathing heavily. They'd been at this for 6 hours straight, attempting to synchro Anize their powers under Keita's relentless instruction. The Dimensional Council's training chamber, a vast space with gravity and reality settings that could be manipulated at will, currently simulated. A rocky terrain with unpredictable gravitational shifts. Ready? Ben asked over his shoulder, the Omnitrix humming with energy. Ready, Deku confirmed, green lightning crackling around his form. They moved in unison, Ben transforming into Heatblast while Deku launched himself skyward. The fire alien generated a massive thermal updraft that caught Deku, propelling him higher. At the apex of his ascent, Deku channeled One for All into a devastating kick aimed at a training drone, one of dozens that swarmed around them. The impact shattered the drone, but the timing was a fraction off. EAD of the synchronized energy pulse they'd been attempting to create, their powers merely complemented each other rather than truly merging. Keita sighed, twisting her wrist to reset the simulation. Better, but still not true synchronization. You're fighting alongside each other, not as unified vessels. Ben reverted to human form, wiping sweat from his forehead. Maybe if you explained exactly what we're trying to achieve here. Feel the dragon force, isn't the most specific instruction. Because there's no technical explanation that would help, Keita replied, her amber eyes narrowing. The dragon force isn't technology or even conventional energy, it's primal, intuitive. It responds to emotional resonance between vessels. Deku landed beside them, the lightning around him fading as he caught his breath. We've only known each other for 3 days. Building that kind of connection takes time. Time we don't have, Keita reminded them, gesturing toward the wall where a display showed ongoing attacks across multiple dimensions. Kronos' forces have already collapsed 3 pocket dimensions since your arrival. Ben's expression hardened. Then maybe we should be out there helping instead of running drills. And achieve what, exactly? Keita challenged, stepping directly into his space. Get yourselves captured. Accelerate Kronos' plans. Without proper synchronization, you're powerful, yes, but nowhere near what you need to be to face Void Architects. The tension between them crackled almost tangibly before a new voice interrupted. Perhaps a different approach might yield better results. All 3 turned to see a young woman entering the training chamber. She appeared to be in her early 20s, with pale lavender hair that floated weightlessly around her head as though underwater. Her eyes were startling, entirely silver with faint symbols constantly shifting across the irises like data streams. She wore the formal robes of the council, but with various modifications that suggested a more practical, hands-on role than the other members they'd met. Alara, Keita acknowledged with a respectful nod. I didn't realize you'd returned from the quantum archives. The situation warranted an expedited research process, Alara replied, her voice carrying a melodic quality with perfect diction. She approached Ben and Deku with undisguised curiosity. Fascinating. The resonance patterns are already much stronger than the historical records indicated they should be at this stage. Ben raised an eyebrow. And you are? Oh, my apologies. She offered a formal bow. Alara Starweaver, junior archivist and theoretical multiversal physicist for the Dimensional Council. I've been researching previous manifestations of the Dragon Force throughout recorded history. Previous manifestations? Deku asked, interest immediately piqued. You mean there were other dragon vessels before us? Singular vessels, yes, though never a successful pairing, Alara explained. Gesturing with her hands as holographic displays materialized around them, showing historical figures from various dimensions. The twin dragon prophecy has been attempted 14 previous times, but true synchronization was never achieved. So were attempt number 15. Ben said with a frown. Those aren't great odds. Technically, the 15th documented attempt, Alara corrected. And actually, your preliminary resonance readings are already stronger than any previous pairing achieved even after months of training. Keita crossed her arms. Which would be more impressive if they could actually maintain synchronized transformation for more than 3 seconds. Alara's silver eyes gleamed with excitement. But that's just it. I believe we've been approaching this from the wrong angle. The historical records suggest the Dragon Force responds not to combat synchronization but to mutual understanding. She turned to Ben and Deku. You're trying to HT is one before you truly know each other. Deku considered this like trying to perform a complex dance without learning the basic steps first. Precisely. Alara beamed at him. The Dragon Force isn't just power, it's consciousness. In a sense, it chooses its vessels based on complementary attributes, not identical ones. So instead of trying to be copies of each other, Ben began. You need to understand how your differences create balance, Alara finished. Ben Tennyson, your adaptive abilities and experience with different forms of life provide perspective that Izuku Midoriya's focused analytical approach complements perfectly. Keita looked skeptical but nodded slowly. The council has authorized Alara to assist with your training. Her theoretical knowledge of the Dragon Force is unparalleled, even if her practical experience is limited. I've observed 63-dimensional collapses and analyzed the energy patterns of 4 different dragon vessel candidates, Alara defended. Before adding somewhat sheepishly, from a safe distance, of course. Ben couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. There was something refreshingly genuine about the way she spoke about her research, passionate but not detached from the human implications. So what's your recommendation? Deku asked her. A multiphase approach, Alara replied immediately, as though she'd been waiting for the question. First, cognitive synchronization exercises to establish neural resonance patterns. Then, progressive power merging scenarios under controlled conditions. Finally, practical application in a low-risk field environment. Quote, Keita raised an eyebrow. The Magister has already approved a reconnaissance mission to Dimension CR7. The reports of reality fluctuations there match Pat. RNS that precede Kronos' major attacks. CR7. Alara's eyes widened. That's a Class 4 unstable dimension with documented reality shifting properties. Hardly low risk for untrained vessels. We're running out of options. Keita replied grimly. The mission is scheduled for tomorrow. Then we have approximately 22 hours to establish basic synchronization, Alara concluded, turning to Ben and Deku with determination. We'll need to accelerate the process significantly. Ben exchanged glances with Deku, seeing his own mix of concern and resolve mirrored there. Whatever it takes. We didn't ask for this Dragon Force thing, but we're not backing down from the responsibility. Deku nodded firmly. People are counting on us across multiple dimensions. We'll make it work. Alara smiled, a hint of relief visible in her otherworldly eyes. Excellent. Let's begin with the mind meld. This is not what I expected from cognitive synchronization exercises, Ben commented several hours later. He sat cross-legged opposite Deku in a small meditation chamber, the walls around them projected with swirling cosmic imagery. Between them floated a crystalline sphere that pulsed with gentle light in rhythm with their breathing. Alara monitored various readings from a console nearby. The mnemonic resonator allows surface-level memory and emotional exchange without complete telepathic intrusion. It's helping establish neural pathways between you that the Dragon Force can utilize. It feels strange, Deku admitted, his eyes closed in concentration. Like remembering things that didn't happen to me. Those would be Ben's memories filtering through, Alara explained. The process works best when you don't resist the flow but don't chase specific memories either. Ben found the experience oddly intimate yet not invasive. Fragments of Deku's life flickered through his consciousness, the joy of receiving his hero license, the crushing disappointment of initially being diagnosed as quirkless. The moment All Might had told him he could become a hero. Alongside these emotional impressions came contextual understanding that helped Ben appreciate just how different their paths had been despite their similar ages and heroic aspirations. Your mentor meant a lot to you, Ben observed quietly. All Might, I can feel how much his approval changed everything for you. Deku's eyes opened in surprise. Yes, he saw potential in me when nobody else did. He paused, processing something. And your grandfather, he shaped your journey too. Ben nodded, unexpectedly moved by Deku's understanding. Grandpa Max showed me what being a hero really means, that it's not about the powers but how you use them. The crystal between them pulsed brighter as they continued sharing insights, their respiratory and heart rates unconsciously synchronizing. Alara watched with growing excitement as the monitors displayed increasingly harmonic energy patterns. This is remarkable progress, she noted. Adjusting some settings, you're achieving resonance levels that typically take weeks to develop. Perhaps because they're both already heroes in their own right, Keita observed from the doorway, where she'd been silently watching. They share core values despite different experiences. Alara nodded thoughtfully. The Dragon Force likely selected them for precisely that reason. Similar moral foundations expressed through different methodologies. After another hour, the crystal dimmed as the session concluded. Ben and Deku both looked exhausted but somehow more centered than before. How do you feel? Alara asked, approaching with scanning equipment. Like I ran a mental marathon, Ben admitted, stretching his shoulders. But also, clearer, somehow. Like I understand things I didn't before. I feel the same, Deku agreed. It's as if I can almost anticipate how Ben would approach a situation now. Keita stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. Then perhaps you're ready for the next phase. Combat synchronization with your new understanding. Ben glanced at Deku, who nodded. They both stood, a new confidence in their movements as they followed Keita back to the main training area. We'll start with elemental harmony, Keita instructed. Ben, transform into a form with elemental capabilities. Deku, focus on channeling one for all, with emotional intent rather than just physical enhancement. Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting carefully. Swampfire. The transformation completed, but with noticeable differences from his standard form. The plant-like alien now featured scale patterns across its body, and the flames it produced had a distinctly different coloration, more intense and controlled. The draconic influence is becoming more pronounced, Alara noted. Scanning the transformation. The Dragon Force is adapting your existing forms rather than creating entirely new ones. Deku closed his eyes, concentrating on one for all. The green lightning around him began to shift, taking on patterns that resembled flowing water in some areas and solid earth in others. I can feel it, he said with wonder. The energy responds differently based on what I'm focusing on. When I think about protection, it feels solid, like stone. When I think about adaptation, it flows like water. Elemental affinity, Keita confirmed. The Dragon Force expresses itself through primal elements. Together, you should be able to combine these expressions for greater effect. They spent the next several hours practicing different combinations. Swampfire's enhanced flames with Deku's wind-aspected lightning creating controlled firestorms. Diamondhead's crystalline projections merged with Deku's earth-aspected strength creating seismic attacks. Water hazards pressurized streams combining with Deku's fluid movement patterns for precision striking. With each successful combination, the resonance between them strengthened. By the time Keita called for a break, they were anticipating each other's movements with uncanny precision. Your progress is impressive, she acknowledged, actual approval in her voice for the first time. But remember, Kronos' forces will be specifically targeting your connection. In CR7, the unstable reality will test your ability to maintain synchronization under adverse conditions. What exactly should we expect in this dimension? Deku asked as they moved to a briefing area. Alara brought up a holographic display showing a cityscape unlike anything they'd seen before, buildings of impossible architecture that seemed to shift and change even as they watched, streets that folded into themselves like optical illusions, and reflective surfaces everywhere. Dimension CR7, colloquially known as the Mirror Metropolis. She explained. Reality there is fluid, responding to both conscious and unconscious thought. Reflective surfaces serve as potential gateways between different sections of altered reality. So it's not just what you see, but what you think that shapes things. Ben asked, studying the strange cityscape. Precisely, Alara confirmed. For most visitors, the effects are minimal. Perhaps a street redirecting to their unconscious destination, or architecture shifting to reflect cultural preferences. But for beings with significant power, like dragon vessels, Deku concluded, the effects could be dramatic. Keita finished. Your combined energy will likely cause accelerated reality fluctuations. That's why maintaining control is critical. Jens suggests an artifact of significant power is located in CR7's central nexus, Alara continued, highlighting a massive structure at the city's center that resembled a cathedral made entirely of mirrors and crystal. Energy readings indicate it may be one of the Chronos keys, devices Lord Chronos uses to initiate dimensional collapse. So we go in, secure the artifact, and get out before Chronos' forces realize we're there. Ben summarized. While managing unpredictable reality shifts and maintaining your synchronization, Keita added. Simple. Deku's expression grew determined. Nothing about saving people is ever simple. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Something about his straightforward determination resonated with Ben. Despite their different backgrounds and power sets, they shared that core principle, the responsibility to help others, regardless of the personal cost. Perhaps that's what the Dragon Force had recognized in them both. Get some rest, Keita advised. Tomorrow we'll test everything you've learned. The transition between dimensions felt smoother this time, less like being torn apart and more like passing through a membrane. Ben, Deku, and Keita materialized on a rooftop overlooking the impossible cityscape of Crossing 7. Whoa, Ben breathed, taking in the sight. The mirror metropolis stretched in all directions, a dizzying array of crystal, glass, and polished metal structures that defied conventional physics. Buildings curved and intersected at angles that shouldn't have been possible, streets folded upward to become walkable walls. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were reflective surfaces that showed not just reflections but glimpses of slightly altered versions of reality. Remember the mission parameters, Keita reminded them. Her armor gleaming in the strange light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. We locate the Chronos key, secure it, and extract immediately. No unnecessary engagements. What's the population like here? Deku asked, his hero instincts immediately concerned for civilian safety. Minimal physical inhabitants, Keita answered. Most native County Route 7 entities exist in a semi-physical state. Manifesting is needed through the reflective surfaces. They rarely interact with visitors unless directly engaged. As if to demonstrate her point, a humanoid figure composed entirely of reflective segments walked casually up a vertical building face nearby, paying them no attention whatsoever. The central nexus is approximately 2 kilometers in that direction, Keita pointed toward the massive crystalline structure visible even through the distorted cityscape. We should. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the city, red light pulsing across every reflective surface. The buildings around them shifted, angles becoming sharper and more threatening. That's not supposed to happen, Keita said tensely, flame hair flaring as she scanned their surroundings. The city's defense systems have activated. Defense against what? Ben asked, activating the Omnitrix. Against intruders seeking the Nexus artifacts, came a new voice from behind them. They spun to find a figure perched on a higher section of the rooftop, a young woman in her early 20s with a lithe, athletic build. She wore a form-fitting outfit of dark gray material that seemed to capture and distort light around her. Her most striking feature was her hair, a silver-white color that reflected the city's lights in prismatic patterns, and her eyes, which appeared to be made of actual mirrors, owing tiny reflections of whoever she looked at. Who are you? Keita demanded, hands igniting with flame. The woman smiled, an expression both mischievous and calculating. Someone who got here first. She held up a crystalline object roughly the size and shape of a dagger, but with constantly shifting internal patterns. Looking for this, Dimension Knight. The Chronos key, Keita confirmed, eyes narrowing. Hand it over immediately. I don't think I will, the woman replied casually. Do you have any idea what collectors will pay for authentic multiversal artifacts? This little beauty is my retirement plan. It's not just an artifact. Deku stepped forward, green lightning crackling around him. It's a weapon that could destroy entire dimensions. The woman's mirrored eyes reflected his lightning in fractalized patterns. Interesting energy signature you have there, green boy. You're not from around here either. Her gaze shifted to Ben, then widened slightly. And the Omnitrix wielder too. My, the council must be desperate to send its precious dragon vessels on a simple retrieval mission. Ben's eyes narrowed. You know about us. Information is my secondary business, she replied with a smirk. The name's Talia Shiftglass, by the way. Professional acquirer of rare objects. You mean thief, Keita corrected flatly. Talia shrugged. Such an ugly word for such a refined skill set. She tucked the key into a pouch at her hip. Now, as lovely as this chat has been, I have buyers waiting. She backflipped off the edge of the building before anyone could react. Keita immediately sprinted to the edge, with Ben and Deku close behind. Below, they saw Talia land impossibly lightly on a street that should have been too far for a safe jump, then dash toward a massive mirror embedded in a nearby wall. She's heading for the mirror network. Keita shouted. If she enters the reflective pathways, we'll never catch her. Ben slammed down the Omnitrix dial. XLR8. The transformation completed with the now familiar draconic additions, scale patterns across the blue and black body, and what appeared to be small wings extending from the back. I'll cut her off, he called, voice deeper and more resonant than XLR8's usual tone. Without waiting for a response, he raced down the building at supersonic speed. Deku turned to Keita. Can you track her if she enters the mirrors? Not easily, Keita admitted. The reflective pathways connect to thousands of points throughout the city, and they shift constantly. Then we need to stop her before she gets there, Deku concluded. Green lightning intensifying around him. I'll approach from the left flank. You take high position for aerial coverage. Keita nodded, impressed by his tactical thinking. Maintain communication through your dragon resonance with Ben. The city will try to separate you. Deku leapt from the building, using one for all to propel himself in a wide arc that would intercept Talia's path. As he moved, he noticed the buildings around him subtly shifting, as though the city itself were responding to his presence. Streets elongated or contracted, alleyways appeared and disappeared, and reflective surfaces turned to track his movement like curious eyes. Below, XLR8 was discovering the challenges of navigating CR7's fluid geography. What had appeared to be straight paths suddenly curved or split, forcing him to make split-second directional changes. More disconcertingly, his own reflections in the omnipresent mirrors moved independently, sometimes racing alongside him. Other times heading in completely different directions. Despite these obstacles, Ben was gaining on Talia, who glanced back with a look of genuine surprise at his speed. She suddenly veered into what appeared to be a dead-end alley, running straight for a wall of mirrors. I've got her cornered, XLR8 called out, both aloud and through the strange mental link he now shared with Deku. Be careful. Deku's response came immediately in his mind. Something feels wrong. Just as XLR8 was about to reach her, Talia smirked and made a complex gesture with her free hand. The entire alley shimmered, and suddenly every surface, ground, walls, even the air itself, became reflective. XLR8 skidded to a halt, surrounded by countless reflections of himself and Talia, unable to distinguish the real thief from the copies. Like my little trick, Talia's voice echoed from everywhere at once. Mirror maze manifestation, a specialty of mine. XLR8 spun in place, trying to identify the real Talia among the reflections. Nice parlor trick, but I'm not impressed. You should be, all the Talias replied in unison. This isn't illusion, it's actual reality manipulation. Each reflection is equally real while inside the maze. Then I'll just have to catch all of you, XLR8 declared, dashing toward the nearest Talia. His claws passed right through her as the reflection rippled and reformed. 3 more Talias laughed as he tried again with the same result. Ben. Deku's voice called both aloud and mentally as he landed at what had been the alley entrance, now another wall of mirrors. The entire structure is shifting. Keita says it's a mirror nexus point, a dimensional fold in the city's fabric. Indeed, The alley was expanding, mirrors multiplying exponentially until they formed a vast labyrinth of reflective pathways stretching in impossible directions, up walls, across ceilings, into spaces that seemed to exist between dimensions. "Catch me if you can, dragon vessels," Talia's voice echoed as her reflections scattered in all directions. "Consider this your first real test." Ben reverted to human form, the Omnitrix timing out from the dimensional interference. "Great. Just great." Deku approached, the green lightning around him illuminating the mirrored surfaces in eerie patterns. "Kata can't get in. She says the nexus point has sealed itself. We're on our own until we either catch Talia or find our way out. Any suggestions?" Ben asked, studying their distorted reflections. "This place is messing with my head. I can't tell which way is up anymore." Deku closed his eyes, concentrating. During training, Alara mentioned that the Dragon Force can sense disturbances in dimensional energy. If the Chronos Key is as powerful as they say, we might be able to track it directly, Ben finished. Understanding immediately, it was becoming easier to follow Deku's thought processes, as though their minds were gradually synchronizing. Worth a shot. They stood back to back, each focusing on the nascent Dragon Force energy they'd begun to tap into. Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse in response, projecting faint draconic patterns across his skin. Behind him, Deku's One for All energy shifted from pure lightning to a more complex matrix of elemental energies. "There," they said simultaneously, pointing in the same direction, toward what appeared to be a particularly complex intersection of mirrored pathways. "She's moving fast," Deku observed, the Dragon Force enhancing his perceptions. "And the pathways keep rearranging themselves around her. Then we'll just have to move faster." Ben activated the Omnitrix again. "Let's try something new." Ghost Freak. The transformation began normally but quickly took an unexpected turn. The ghostly alien form Mani, fested with dramatically different features, iridescent scales covering parts of the normally bare ectoplasm, draconic wing structures replacing the tattered edges, and eyes that glowed with green fire instead of the usual purple. "Whoa." Ghost Freak's raspy voice had a deeper, more resonant quality. "This is definitely an upgrade. The Dragon Force is modifying your transformations more dramatically now," Deku observed. Green lightning synchronizing with Ghost Freak's spectral energy. "Let's see what it can do," Ghost Freak replied, extending a clawed hand to Deku. "I think I can phase us bot. H through these mirrors directly to her location." Deku nodded, grasping the offered hand. The sensation was strange, like touching solid energy rather than a ghost. The moment they connected, their energies synchronized more completely than ever before, green lightning merging with spectral power. Ghost Freak concentrated, and both heroes phased through the nearest mirror, not breaking it, but passing through as though it were a liquid portal. Inside, they found themselves in a crystalline tunnel network that existed between the reflective surfaces, a hidden infrastructure connecting all of CR7's mirrors. "Incredible," Deku breathed, looking around at the prismatic environment. Reflections of the city appeared on every surface, but distorted and from impossible angles, as though they were seeing County Route 7 from outside conventional space-time. "I can sense her more clearly now," Ghost Freak said, pulling them forward through the crystal tunnel. "She's navigating these pathways like she's done it 100 times. "She probably has," Deku replied as they moved swiftly through the network. "Kata mentioned she's a professional thief. This dimension would be perfect for someone with her abilities." They emerged through another mirror into what appeared to be a vast spherical chamber composed entirely of reflective fragments. In the center floated Talia, the Chronos Key hovering before her as she manipulated it with complex hand gestures. Thousands of reflections surrounded her, each showing slightly different versions of the same scene. "Finding the pathway nexus. Impressive for newcomers," she called without looking up from her work. "But you're too late. I've already activated the key's primary function." "Which is what, exactly?" Ghost Freak demanded, hovering menacingly. Talia finally turned to face them, her mirror eyes reflecting their combined form in fractalized patterns. "Information extraction. Before I can sell this beauty, I need to understand exactly what it does." She gestured to the swirling data patterns emanating from the key. "And it's quite fascinating. This isn't just a weapon, it's a map to something called the Void Imperium." Deku stepped forward, One for all energy forming protective patterns around both him and Ghost Freak. That information is dangerous. The Void Imperium is trying to collapse the multiverse. All the more valuable to the right buyer. Talia replied with a shrug, though something in her expression suggested she hadn't known the full implications. Besides, what do I care about multiversal politics? I'm just trying to make a living. By selling a doomsday device. Ghost Freak moved closer, his modified form casting dramatic shadows across the mirrored chamber. A girl's gotta eat, Talia responded flippantly, though her posture had become noticeably more defensive. And it's not like your precious council has clean hands either. Do they know what else this key can do? The information it contains about the Dragon Force. Ben and Deku exchanged glances, their connection allowing immediate communication without words. Something in Talia's tone suggested she'd found information that surprised even her. What are you talking about? Deku asked cautiously. Talia studied them for a moment, as though making a decision. Did they tell you what happened to the previous dragon vessels? All 14 pairs. They failed to synchronize properly. Ghost Freak answered, repeating what Ilara had told them. A harsh laugh escaped Talia. Is that what they said? Interesting spin on. Catastrophically exploded, taking entire dimensions with them. This key contains observational data from the Void Imperium on every previous attempt to manifest the twin dragons. None of them ended well. The chamber suddenly shuddered, reflections fracturing and reassembling in chaotic patterns. The Chronos key pulsed with increasing intensity, emitting a high-pitched whine. What's happening? Deku demanded, bracing himself as the floor beneath them trembled. Talia's confident expression faltered. It's not supposed to do that. The extraction protocol should be passive. The key suddenly flared with blinding light, projecting a symbol into the air, a stylized eye within a triangle. The image hung for a moment before a voice emanated from it, cold and emotionless. Chronos key ALPHA7 activated. Dimensional coordinates logged. Void architects dispatching to location. Estimated arrival. 3 minutes. You triggered a tracking beacon. Ghost Freak accused, advancing on Talia. I didn't know. She shot back, genuine alarm in her mirrored eyes. It was supposed to be inert until properly activated at a designated site. The chamber shook more violently, cracks appearing in the mirrored surface. As reality itself seemed to protest the key's activation. We need to get out of here, Deku stated urgently. If Void Architects are coming. Too late, Talia interrupted, pointing to one of the larger mirrors where a dark portal was beginning to form. That's a void aperture forming. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they fully materialize. Ghost Freak moved to Deku's side, their energies synchronizing further in response to the threat. Can you deactivate the key? Talia shook her head. Once a beacon is triggered, it can't be shut down remotely. But, she hesitated, then made a decision. I can contain it temporarily. My mirror abilities can create a reflective pocket dimension that might mask its signal long enough for us to escape. Why would you help us? Deku asked skeptically. Because contrary to what you might think, I don't actually want to see dimensions collapse, Talia snapped. I'm a thief, not a nihilist. Besides, if the Void Architects find me with an activated key, they'll assume I'm working against them. I've stolen from their outposts before, they're not the forgiving type. The dark portal grew larger, tendrils of void energy beginning to reach through. Do it, Ghost Freak decided. But know that if you try to run with that key, we will find you. Charming, Talia muttered, then closed her eyes in concentration. Her mirror eyes began to glow, and the key floated toward her, gradually being enveloped in layers of reflective energy that folded in on themselves until the artifact disappeared into what looked like a small hand mirror that materialized in her palm. There, contained in a pocket dimension accessible only to me, she explained, tucking the mirror into a secure pouch. Now let's get out of here before. A massive clawed hand thrust through the portal, followed by a hulking figure that resembled the creatures they'd fought during their first meeting, but larger and more heavily armored. Void Architect, Talia hissed, backing away. Elite class. By the looks of it. The creature fully emerged, 9 feet tall with void black armor covering a form that seemed to bend light around it unnaturally. Its mask resembled an abstract skull with glowing runes where eyes should be. Dragon vessels detected, it intoned, voice resonating painfully in their minds. Priority targets acquired. Secondary target. Mirror Adept Talia Shift Glass. Wanted for theft of Imperium artifacts. Commencing capture protocol. Yeah, that's not happening, Ghost Freak declared, positioning himself protectively between the architect and the others. The architect raised its arm, which transformed into a cannon-like apparatus. Resistance is counterproductive. Lord Kronos wishes to study the Dragon Force directly. Your cooperation will make extraction less painful. We've heard that sales pitch before, Ghost Freak replied, then glanced at Deku. Ready to test our training? Deku nodded, one for all energy intensifying. Synchronization pattern alpha, let's do it. Quote, Ghost Freak suddenly shot forward, becoming intangible just as the architect fired a beam of void energy. Simultaneously, Deku channeled his power in a new way, focusing on the feeling of adaptability that Alara had helped him identify. The green lightning around him took on a fluid quality, almost like water, allowing him to flow around the second blast with impossible grace. As Ghost Freak passed through the architect's body, he became tangible at precisely the moment Deku struck from the opposite side. The combined attack, spectral disruption and cons. NTRATED force, sent the creature staggering backward. Its armor is adapting, Deku observed, noting how the void black material rippled and thickened where they had struck. Then we change tactics, Ghost Freak replied, slapping the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Heat Blast. The fiery alien materialized with dramatic draconic enhancements, the flames burning with green-gold intensity, scale patterns visible beneath the fire, and small wings of pure flame extending from its back. Deku immediately understood the strategy, shifting his emotional focus to determination and protective instinct. Lightning around him took on aspects of fire, creating a corona of green-gold energy that mirrored Heat Blast's flames. Elemental synchronization, Talia murmured from where she had taken cover. They really are dragon vessels. Heat Blast and Deku attacked in perfect coordination, their fire-aspected energies combining into a vortex of flame that engulfed the architect. The creature roared in pain as its adaptive armor struggled to compensate for the synchronized assault. Its weakness is in the mask, Talia called out suddenly. The rune patterns are power regulators. Heat Blast nodded in acknowledgement, directing a concentrated stream of fire at the mask while Deku circled around, looking for an opening. The chamber continued to destabilize around them, mirrors shattering in refo. RMING in chaotic patterns as the dimensional integrity weakened. The architect suddenly slammed both fists into the ground, sending a shockwave of void energy that disrupted their attack and knocked Heat Blast backward. It then fired a barrage of energy projectiles that honed in on Deku with unnatural precision. Look out, Heat Blast shouted, both verbally and through their mental link. Deku dodged most of the projectiles, but one clipped his shoulder, instantly numbing his entire arm. Negative energy, he gasped. It cancels out one for all on contact. The architect advanced on him, sensing vulnerability. The Dragon Force cannot protect against void energy. Submit to extraction. I don't think so, came Talia's voice from behind the creature. She had circled around during the fight, and now stood with hands pressed against a large mirror. Nobody threatens my potential business partners. Before the architect could turn, Talia activated her power. The mirror rippled and suddenly extended tendrils of reflective material that wrapped around the creature, pulling it backward. I can't hold it for long, she called, strain evident in her voice. These things exist partially outside normal space-time. Heat Blast immediately understood the opportunity. Deku. Convergence strike. Despite his numbed arm, Deku nodded, channeling one for all through his functioning limbs. Together, they rushed the immobilized architect from opposite sides, their energies building to unprecedented levels as they approached. The moment they struck, Heat Blast with a concentrated Nova Blast, and Deku with a full power kick, their Dragon Force energies synchronized completely. Green-gold fire and lightning merged into a single attack that pierced directly through the architect's mask. The creature convulsed as fractures spread across its entire form, void energy leaking from the cracks. With a sound like reality itself tearing, it imploded into a single point of darkness that winked out of existence. The chamber fell silent except for their heavy breathing and the continuing sounds of mirrors breaking and reforming. Heat Blast reverted to Ben's human form as the Omnitrix timed out, while Deku collapsed to one knee, his arm gradually regaining feeling. That, Talia said, looking genuinely impressed, was something I've never seen before. And I've seen a lot. Thanks for the assist, Ben acknowledged, helping Deku to his feet. Though I'm still not sure we can trust you with that key. Talia shrugged. Trust doesn't enter into it. Right now, we all want the same thing, too. Get out of this dimension before more architects arrive or the whole place collapses. As if emphasizing her point, a large section of the ceiling shattered, fragments hanging suspended in air before reorganizing into a new configuration. The dimensional integrity is failing, Deku observed. The architect's void energy must have accelerated the destabilization. Can you get us out the same way you got in? Ben asked Talia, gesturing to the mirrors. She nodded. I can create a pathway back to the surface level, but we need to move quickly. Once a mirror shatters completely, that route is permanently closed. Then lead the way, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix again. Big chill. The transformation completed with the now familiar draconic enhancements, ice crystals forming scale-like patterns across the moth-like alien's body, and the wings taking on a more structured, almost armored appearance. The cold will help stabilize the mirrors temporarily, Big Chill explained in his whispery voice, exhaling freezing breath that strengthened the fracturing reflective surfaces. Talia placed her hands against the most intact mirror and closed her eyes in concentration. The surfa, CE rippled like liquid silver before forming an archway. Through here. It's a direct path to the building where we first met. With luck, your fire-haired friend will still be in the vicinity. Deku went first, followed by Talia. Big Chill lingered, continuing to reinforce the increasingly unstable chamber with his ice breath before finally following them through. The mirror pathway was different. This time, less structured and more chaotic, with images from across the dimension flickering rapidly around them as they ran. Occasionally, glimpses of void black tendrils could be seen pursuing them through the crystalline network. They're tracking us through the reflective system, Talia called over her shoulder. More architects must have arrived. How much further? Big Chill asked, periodically turning to freeze the pathway behind them, temporarily blocking the pursuit. Almost there, Talia replied, skidding around a crystal junction. The exit point should be. She was cut off the pathway ahead of them suddenly darkened, void energy seeping through the crystalline structure. A second architect began to materialize directly in their path. Back. Go back, Talia shouted, spinning around. Too late. Deku pointed behind them, where the first set of void tendrils had broken through Big Chill's ice barrier. We're trapped between them. Big Chill scanned their surroundings desperately. There. He pointed to what appeared to be a flaw in the crystal pathway, a hairline fracture running perpendicular to their route. That's not a natural formation. It's a dimensional stress line. Talia's eyes widened with understanding. If we can break through it, we create our own exit, Deku finished, already channeling one for all into his good arm. Stand back. Big C. Hill moved protectively in front of Talia while Deku focused his power, green lightning concentrating around his fist. With a shout of effort, he struck the stress line with precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a spiderweb of cracks spread rapidly from the impact point, white light spilling through. The entire pathway shuddered as reality itself seemed to protest the breach. Now or never. Big Chill grabbed both Talia and Deku, turning intangible just as the cracks reached critical mass. The pathway shattered around them as Big Chill pulled them through the dimensional tier. The sensation was like being simultaneously frozen and burned, passing through raw reality without the buffer of proper dimensional transition. All three cried out in pain before suddenly tumbling onto solid ground. They found themselves on a rooftop in what appeared to be a more stable section of Crossing 7, the central nexus visible in the distance. The mirror metropolis was visibly destabilizing now, buildings shifting more rapidly and some structures disappearing entirely only to reappear in different configurations. Ben, Izuku, Keita's voice called as she raced across adjacent rooftops toward them. Flame hair blazing with battle energy. What happened? I lost track of you when the mirror nexus collapsed. Big Chill reverted to Ben's human form as he sat up groggily. Short version. We found the Chronos key. Got attacked by void architects, and barely escaped with our lives. Oh, and we made a new friend. Sort of. He gestured to Talia, who was already standing and dusting herself off WITH remarkable composure given what they'd just experienced. Talia shift glass, Keita growled, flame hair intensifying. I should have known you'd be involved. Hand over the key immediately. Nice to see you too, Dimension Knight. Talia replied dryly, and ordinarily, I'd tell you where to stick that request, but... She glanced at Ben and Deku, then sighed dramatically. Recent events have convinced me that this particular item might be more trouble than it's worth. She reached into her pouch and withdrew the hand mirror containing the Chronos key. With a complex gesture, she released the artifact from its pocket dimension, allowing it to float between them. Consider this a professional courtesy, she told Ben and Deku. Next time we meet, I won't be so generous. Keita quickly secured the key in a containment device. This doesn't absolve you of theft, Shift Glass. Never claimed it did, Talia replied with a smirk. But right now, you have bigger problems. This dimension is collapsing at an accelerated rate, and the Void Architects know your precious dragon vessels are here. As if confirming her warning, a massive tremor shook the city, buildings in the distance beginning to fold in on themselves like paper. She's right, Deku said, wincing as he stood. The confrontation with the architects destabilized something fundamental in this dimension's structure. Keita nodded grimly. Our extraction point is 3 blocks east. We need to move now. What about the inhabitants? Ben asked, looking at the city around them. CR7 entities exist across multiple reflective states simultaneously. Keita explained as they began running across the rooftops. If this dimension collapses, they'll consolidate into their parallel existences. No true consciousness will be lost. Convenient, Talia muttered, keeping pace with them effortlessly. As they reached the edge of the current building, a massive void portal began forming in the sky above the central nexus. Much larger than the ones they'd seen before. That's a capital ship portal, Keita said, alarm evident in her voice. Chronos must have sent a void dreadnought when the architects failed to secure you. How long until extraction capabilities? Deku asked, analytical mind already calculating scenarios. 90 seconds at our current pace, Keita replied. Assuming the extraction point remains stable. It won't, Talia interjected. Look, she pointed to where the city's grid was visibly reconfiguring, streets and buildings rearranging themselves in patterns that would cut off their route. The city's defensive protocols are trying to prevent dimensional breaches, Talia explained. It's sealing off sectors to contain the collapse. Then we make our own path, Ben decided, activating the Omnitrix again. Diamond Head. Quote, the crystalline alien appeared with dramatic draconic modifications. The diamond-like body now featured interlocking scale patterns, blade-like protrusions extended from the forearms and shoulders. And the crystals themselves had a deeper, more multifaceted quality that captured and refracted light in complex patterns. Everyone stay close, Diamond Head instructed, placing his hands on the rooftop. Massive crystal formations erupted from his touch, forming a bridge that extended toward their destination, bypassing the changing streets below. Impressive adaptation, Talia noted as they ran across the crystal bridge. The Dragon Force really does enhance existing abilities rather than just adding raw power. You seem to know a lot about the Dragon Force for a common thief. Keita observed suspiciously. Talia's mirrored eyes revealed nothing. I make it my business to know about valuable things. Dragon vessels definitely qualify. Another violent tremor shook the city, causing the crystal bridge to crack. Deku immediately moved to reinforce it, channeling one for all through the structure in a way that complemented Diamond Head's powers. The bridge stabilized, their energies working in harmony. The synchronization is improving, Keita noted with approval as they continued forward. Your training is showing results. Less talking, more running, Talia suggested as the void portal in the sky expanded further, the outline of a massive ship beginning to take form within it. They reached the final building before their extraction point, a circular plaza that now pulsed with golden energy similar to the Council's transportation system. However, between them and the plaza, a chasm had opened where the city grid had pulled apart, too wide to jump. End of the line, Talia observed grimly. Not yet, Diamond Head replied, looking at Deku. Remember synchronization pattern Delta? Deku nodded, understanding immediately. Crystal bridge combined with force expansion. Quote, exactly. Diamond Head extended both arms, creating a partial crystal bridge that extended halfway across the chasm but couldn't reach the other side due to the continuing dimensional distortion. Simultaneously, Deku channeled One for All in a new pattern, the green lightning extending beyond his body to form tangible constructs that completed the bridge with energy scaffolding. Go! Diamond Head called to Keita and Talia. It won't hold for long. Keita sprinted across immediately. Talia hesitated, looking back at the collapsing city behind them, an unreadable expression in her mirrored eyes. What are you waiting for? Deku called, strain evident in his voice as he maintained the energy construct. Just calculating my options, Talia replied, before finally running across the hybrid bridge. As she reached the other side, she turned back. For what it's worth, you two are better at this than any previous vessels I've read about. Maybe you'll actually survive. With that ambiguous encouragement, she darted away from the extraction point, disappearing into a nearby mirror before Keita could stop her. Let her go, Diamond Head called. We have bigger problems. Indeed, the void ship had now fully materialized above the central nexus, a massive construct of impossible geometry that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Smaller craft were deploying from it, heading in their direction. They've locked onto the key's energy signature, Keita shouted. Get across now. Deku and Diamond Head began carefully making their way across their own creation, maintaining it through their combined power. Just as they reached the halfway point, the first void craft fired, the energy beam striking near the base of their bridge. The structure shuddered violently. Diamond Head grabbed Deku's arm to stabilize him, and in that moment of direct contact, their Dragon Force energies synchronized more completely than ever before. Scale patterns AP. Paired on Deku's skin while Diamond Head's crystalline body pulsed with green lightning. What's happening? Deku gasped as power surged between them. Dragon Force Defensive Protocol, Keita called from the extraction point, where she was making final adjustments to the portal. Your combined survival instinct is triggering accelerated synchronization. Indeed, their powers were merging in real time. Deku's lightning infusing Diamond Head's crystals, while diamond-like reinforcement spread across Deku's costume. Together, they sprinted the remaining distance as more void craft approached, their movements perfectly coordinated. They reached the extraction point just as Keita activated the portal. Golden energy enveloped them as the void crafts opened fire, their beams dissipating harmless. Lee against the Council's transportation shield. The last thing they saw before the portal closed was County Route 7 beginning its final collapse, buildings, streets, and the very fabric of that reality folding inward toward a central point as the void ship loomed overhead. Then they were gone, the golden light of dimensional transit replacing the chaotic destruction of the mirror metropolis. Absolutely reckless. The Magister's multicolored eyes flashed with anger as he paced before them in the council chamber. Not only did you alert Kronos to your presence, but you accelerated the collapse of an entire dimension. Ben and Deku stood side by side, still showing faint traces of their synchronized transformation, scale patterns gradually fading from Deku's skin, while Ben's eyes retained a slight reptilian quality to the pupils. With respect, Magister, Deku replied calmly, we completed the mission objectives. We secured the Kronos key and returned safely, and gained valuable combat experience against Void Architects. Ben added, not to mention first-hand knowledge of how Kronos' forces operate. Keita stood nearby, arms crossed. They're right. Despite complications, the mission was ultimately successful. The Magister sighed, his anger deflating somewhat. The successful retrieval of the key is indeed fortunate. Our analysts are already studying it for insights into Kronos' plans. He fixed them with a stern look. But the accelerated collapse of Crossing 7 was not part of the mission parameters. That wasn't their fault, came Alara's voice as she entered the chamber, carrying several holographic displays. My analysis confirms that CR7 was already targeted for collapse. The Kronos key's presence there was deliberate, it was functioning as a dimensional ancho. Our point for the Void Imperium's harvesting process. Meaning, the Magister prompted. Meaning they would have collapsed that dimension anyway, Alara explained, bringing up a simulation showing energy flows across the multiverse. By removing the key, Ben and Izuku actually disrupted Kronos' ability to harvest CR7's dimensional energy efficiently. It's a strategic victory, despite the tactical complications. The Magister considered this information, his expression softening slightly. Very well, but in future missions, adherence to protocol is essential. The multiverse is already destabilizing. We cannot afford to accelerate the process inadvertently. There's something else you should know, Ben said, exchanging glances with Deku. Something Talia Shift Glass told us about previous dragon vessels. The Magister's expression grew guarded. What did she say? That all 14 previous vessel pairs didn't just fail to synchronize, they catastrophically exploded, taking entire dimensions with them, Deku quoted. Is that true? A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Keita looked away, while Alara suddenly became very interested in her data displays. The Twin Dragon prophecy has indeed had unfortunate outcomes in previous iterations, the Magister finally admitted. The Dragon Force is immensely powerful. When improperly channeled or synchronized, the results can be destructive. And you didn't think this was relevant information for us? Ben asked incredulously. Would it have changed your decision to help? The Magister countered. You are both heroes at your core. Would knowing the risks to yourselves have deterred you when multiversal collapse threatens countless innocent lives? Neither Ben nor Deku had an immediate response to that, knowing he was right. For what it's worth, Alara interjected softly, your synchronization patterns are already more stable than any previous vessel pairing. The Omnitrix seems to provide a regulatory function that was absent in prior attempts. While One for All's accumulated wisdom appears to guide the Dragon Force more effectively. You should have told us, Deku said firmly. Heroes make choices knowing the risks, not blindly following prophecies. The Magister nodded slowly. You're right, I apologize for the omission. Moving forward, you will have full access to all historical data regarding the Dragon Force and previous vessels. Including the failures, Ben insisted. Especially the failures, the Magister agreed. Alara will provide complete records. He turned to the holographic discs. Plays showing the Kronos Key's analysis. Now, the data recovered from the key suggests Kronos' next major target will be Dimension VS9, a world already engaged in its own internal conflicts. What's special about VS9? Deku asked, professional focus returning despite his lingering concerns. Alara brought up a new display showing a war-torn world with advanced technology. VS9 contains raw redeposits of a material called void steel, one of the few substances that can permanently contain or channel Dragon Force energy. If Kronos acquires a significant amount, he could build weapons, specifically designed to extract or neutralize our powers, Ben concluded. Precisely, the Magister confirmed. Which is why your next mission will be to make contact with the resistance forces in VS9 and secure their void steel deposits before Kronos' forces arrive. When do we leave? Deku asked. Not immediately, Keita interjected. You both need rest and recovery. The Dragon Force sigh. Enchronization you experienced in County Route 7 put significant strain on your biological systems. Pushing too hard too soon could be catastrophic. Keita is right, Alara added, displaying their biometric readings. The rapid evolution of your powers needs time to stabilize. 24 hours minimum before attempting another mission. Ben wanted to argue but could feel the exhaustion in his bones. The draconic aspects of his transformations had taken more energy than he'd realized. Fine, he conceded. 1 day to recover, then we go to VS9. I've arranged quarters for you both in the residential sector, the Magister said. Alara will provide the historical records you requested and brief you further on VS9's political situation. As the meeting concluded, Ben and Deku made their way out the council headquarters toward the residential area, both lost in thought. 14 failures, Deku said quietly once they were alone. All catastrophic. Yeah, but like Alara said, we're different, Ben replied. Trying to sound confident. The Omnitrix has handled cosmic-level energy before. And One for All was designed to be passed between wielders, Deku added. Maybe that adaptability helps with the Dragon Force integration. They reached the residential sector, finding 2 adjacent chambers prepared for them. Before separating, Ben turned to Deku. For what it's worth, if I had to be cosmically bound to someone for a dangerous multiversal mission, I'm glad it's someone who takes being a hero as seriously as you do. Deku smiled, the first genuine one since their return from CR7. Same here. Your experience with different forms of life, different powers, it's impressive. I think we might actually have a chance at this. As they parted ways to rest, neither iced the faint draconic patterns that briefly appeared where their hands had clasped in farewell, a sign that their connection was continuing to develop even without conscious effort. In her own sham, elsewhere in the council headquarters, Alara reviewed the data from County Route 7 with growing excitement and concern. The synchronization rate between Ben and Deku was proceeding faster than any models had predicted, exponentially faster. This changes everything, she murmured to herself, silver eyes reflecting the complex calculations on her screens. The twin dragons aren't just awakening, they're evolving. Meanwhile, in the shadowy between spaces of the multiverse, Talia's shift glass examined a small fragment she had secretly broken from the Chronos key, too small to detect its absence, but large enough to contain valuable data. Her mirror eyes reflected the complex information as she smiled to herself. Well, she whispered. Lord Chronos isn't the only one hunting dragons. This game just got much more interesting. Across the dimensional barriers, in a massive void ship hovering over the remnants of what had been CR7, a tall figure in ornate armor stood before a viewing portal. Lord Chronos, his face concealed behind an elaborate mask displaying a cosmic timepiece, watched recordings of Ben and Deku's synchronized combat against his architects. The dragon vessels progress faster than anticipated, he observed, voice resonating with unnatural harmonics. Their connection grows stronger with each challenge. Is this not contrary to our objectives, my lord? Asked a void architect kneeling nearby. On the contrary, Chronos replied, a smile evident in his voice despite the mask. For the dragon force to be properly harvested, it must first be fully awakened. These vessels are doing our work for us. He gestured, and the viewing portal shifted to show VS9, where war raged across a landscape rich with the black-blue shimmer of void steel. Prepare the invasion force, he commanded. It's time to meet the dragons on the field of battle. Chapter 2 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.